Joining me on the phone is U.S. Representative Harriet Hageman. Harriet, welcome back to the program.
Hey, David, it's so good to be with you, and it's good to be back in Wyoming.
Excellent. So how long are you back this time around?
Well, we're on our August recess.
Okay.
So as you may have seen, I was in Israel for a week, but now I am back in Wyoming, and I'm doing town halls. I'm in Casper right now. We're getting ready to head out to Shoshone.
Excellent. A quick question about Israel. I've always wanted to go there. And I mean, there's so many things that I would love to see, be able to pray at the Western Wall. Did you get any time to go do any sightseeing, or was it jam-packed full of meetings?
The sightseeing was the meeting. So yes, we got to see the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall. We were on the southern edge of the old city. We were able to go underground into the tunnels where they have uncovered the walkway between the pool where Jesus bathed the folks who were coming there to go to the temple. But it was. Most of what we were doing was in the context of the history, the current conflict, the long-term conflict, what is going on in the Middle East, what are the interests of America, how many Americans live there, what is the relationship between Israel and the United States. So we went from about 7 in the morning till about 10 o'clock every single night with meeting with people. The sightseeing that we did get one moment where we got 25 minutes to go into a store, and that was it. The rest of the time was very, very intense, but that's what it should be. And I learned a ton. We'll be putting out more information in that regard. But, in light of what is going on around the world right now, what is going on in the Middle East, I felt that it was incredibly important that I get a firsthand look and understand the geopolitical issues there. And I would say that my knowledge today versus 10 days ago is just, they're not even the same. We went to a kibbutz. We went to look at the Syrian border and the risks up there and what the challenges are trying to keep people safe. It is just it's a very, very complicated area.
Yeah, and I mean there's so much stuff online, in support of Israel, very much against supporting the conflict, Israel's conflict in Gaza. I mean, it's really hard to get a beat on what's actually happening. So I'm really glad you were able to take a trip, and I'd love to talk to you about at length about that a little bit later. But I have a couple of quick questions for you since we have limited time this morning. Probably the biggest thing that's happening in Washington, D.C. right now is the National Guard taking over law enforcement in our nation's capital. Could you tell me how that works? How is that legal? I mean, how long can the president do that? I'm really kind of ignorant on the whole subject. So just try to fill me in if you can.
I would look at it a little bit differently. Rather than taking over law enforcement, they are working with law enforcement. And I think one of the things that is very important and why I wanted to make that clarification is the police department in Washington, D.C. is welcoming this move. And what this is just an opportunity, I think, so that they can take a step back, try to get control of the crime, try to figure out where these, the infestation of the criminals are, root them out, and try to make the entire city safer. We have all heard about the incidents of late. The young intern who worked for Ron Estes out of Kansas, gunned down in cold blood, wasn't even the target, just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. The young gentleman who worked for Doge, who was beaten up last week. The fact is that there are very serious challenges in Washington, D.C. And what the president has done, and it's my understanding that he has 30 days to do this, and then Congress must act. But keep in mind, Congress oversees Washington, D.C. That's one of the reasons when they talk about D.C. statehood and things, you'd have to change the Constitution in order to do that. D.C. is not a state. D.C. is the location of the federal government. It was intended it would not be a state, that it would be specifically for the federal government so that you wouldn't have any one state that would have that kind of power or authority. So we oversee it, and I assume that when we get back, this is one of the first things that we will take up, is to try to find a way to better shore up the police forces and the resources there in Washington, D.C. Now, you and I were talking offline for a minute that, as you said so eloquently, that if President Trump said oxygen was good for you, that the Democrats would stop breathing, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. I mean, the outrage and the Democrats coming out screaming about, he's a dictator, he's this or that. First of all, I wish they'd read. I wish they'd read the Constitution. I wish they'd read what the laws are so that they understand them before they start spouting off. That's number one. But number two, what I cannot for the life of me figure out, why is it that they always take the side of the criminal? Why do they always take the side of the illegal? Why is it that Jocelyn Nungary had to be raped and lose her life for anybody to pay any attention to her while we coddle illegal aliens that come into our country and commit heinous crimes? Why do they always take the wrong side when it comes to these issues?
It's amazing. I mean, it is almost as if they really want crime and they really want chaos. And I think in some cases that's probably true. A couple of other things that I wanted to visit with you about. I've gotten a couple of emails recently. One about the highway funding, transparency, greater flexibility bill, and then the Ballot Act being included in the Road Housing Act. So I guess first, can you tell me what you're doing with highway funding, and then we'll talk about the Road Housing Act?
So, David, you know me, and I am always trying to bring the power and the authority back to the states and the local government. I just truly believe decision making out of Washington, D.C. is not going to be nearly as productive as it will be if we make the decisions here. So all we're trying to do is we're trying to loosen up some of the funds. Right now, our Department of Transportation, they have funds that they can actually move about 50% of their money, their federal money, around to different projects. All we're doing is increasing that to 75%. You know, and what I refer to is, let's say that you've got a road project that you're planning on doing near Chugwater, and then you have a road wash out there in Wyoming. This will give our state officials the authority and the ability to move the money around to deal with an emergency situation if they need to, or if there's something that has developed that they need to prioritize something over something else. Like what we saw up near Jackson. You know, nobody expected that road, Highway 22, to wash out 2 years ago,
right.
But then it happened. And then we need the flexibility to go in there and be able to fix it. So it's just a matter of trying to clean up a few things so that the local decision makers have more authority.
Excellent. All right. So the Ballot Act, and I was trying to read through your email real quick just to figure out what was going on. But I guess two questions. One, can you tell me what that does, and then why it's important that it get passed and its inclusion in the Road Housing Act?
Well, you know, again, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to make sure that we have more local authority and more responsibility. Again, you know, one of the other things that I really wanted to quickly touch base with you on related to this issue of the transportation side of things. I don't know if you saw last week, but Sean Duffy came out and indicated that they have now taken 1,500 truck drivers off the road that cannot speak or read English.
Yeah, I did.
I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
And, you know, that originated from the work that we did earlier this year of notifying them that we had a real problem with non-English speaking drivers. Now, a lot of these folks come from like Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Russia, countries like that, and they cannot read our language. They cannot read English. And as a result, they don't know what the signs say as they're driving down the highways. And you and I both understand we have to look at those digital signs if there's a ice ahead, black ice ahead, high wind warnings, those kinds of things, especially in the winter. And the accidents have absolutely skyrocketed, especially across I-80 in both Nebraska and Wyoming, with all of these non-English speaking, non-English reading truck drivers. And we're getting some real results with that. And I'm very excited and very proud of that work.
Excellent. Good. And you know, it's baffling to me that, you know, I have a hard enough time checking out all of the exit signs and reading, figuring out where I'm going in a larger town. I can't imagine how somebody who doesn't even speak the language can get around. And, you know, that we allow those people on our roads is even more frightening. But it's just absolutely amazing to me. All right. So veterans, the Road Housing Act, what's going on with that?
I don't know that I can answer that, David, right now. When we get back, we'll be addressing that in further detail.
Okay. All right. So is there anything else going on? You said you were over in Shoshone. Do you have a couple of town halls planned?
We do. Tomorrow we're going to be in Du Bois at noon. We're going to be in Du Bois on Thursday at noon. And then today we're renaming the post office in Shoshone for Eli Bebout's mother. And that's part of why I really wanted to be there, because she was there for decades and decades. And it's very important, I think, that we honor her for all the work that she has done over the years. In terms of veterans, we're continuing to work to make sure that our Sheridan VA, which provides services for the majority of the state of Wyoming, that they're meeting the needs of our service members. And we've had some real breakdowns up there over the last couple of years. It's actually been longer than that. This has been a long-standing problem. And one of the things that my office has done, and why we're bringing this type of legislation, is we're trying to make sure that our veterans are able to receive the services that they're entitled to. Wyoming has particular challenges because we have the VA in Sheridan, but if you live in Evanston, you're going to need to treat there. And one of the challenges that we have had with our Sheridan VA is they want the care to take place in Sheridan rather than with the community care. And so we've actually brought out people from the staffers from the Veterans Affairs Subcommittee so that they can see exactly what's going on, talk to the people who are working in the VA, because again, the purpose of the VA is not for everything to be stockpiled and located within Sheridan, but actually to make sure that our veterans receive the care where they live, where they need it, with their primary care physician. So that's part of why we're pursuing this type of legislation, as well as the investigations that we're doing, because we have not been serving our veterans the way that we need to. And this is an issue that has been brought to my attention from the very moment that I took office. And we are adamant that we're going to fix this for our veterans. And you know what? There are some great people who work at the veterans facility in Sheridan. I'm not trying to be critical of any one person, but I think sometimes we lose sight of who the constituents are, and they are the veterans. And under our commitment to them, we need to make sure that we are providing them with the services that they need where they're located.
All right, thanks. Ken's got a question for you.
Hi, Harriet. This is Ken.
Hi, Ken.
I have heard a lot, and I sent you 2 referrals over the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure that's part of what brought this up with problems with the VA. But there's another problem that you may or may not be able to comment on, and that has to do with the use of Tricare. Our veterans have a program called Tricare, which pays for a lot of the subscriptions that they get. But the local pharmacies in many cases are unable to fill those prescriptions or be able to work with Tricare. And so these guys are relegated to ordering everything by the mail. And as we all can imagine, especially in the wintertime, some of those things get a little dicey. Are you able to shed any light on what might be able to be done there?
So again, that is kind of dovetailing a lot of what I have been working on since I got into Congress, trying to make sure that we have the reliable postal services in the state of Wyoming. And this is one of the issues that I have raised repeatedly with the U.S. Postal Service, is that, again, in a rural state like Wyoming, a lot of times our veterans are receiving their medications through the mail. And so when they did the, quote, Delivering for America plan, the U.S. Postal Service in the last U.S. Postmaster, Wyoming and South Dakota were going to be the 2 states that were affected the most. And we just absolutely raised holy heck over that, because we just said you can't do that, in large part because of the impact on our veterans. We continue to try to work with the Postal Service to make sure that we can improve the services that we have here in Wyoming. But I also understand that those are challenges that we have. So I guess what I would ask you to do, Ken, is if there is a particular person that is having a problem with getting their prescriptions, have them get a hold of our office, and let's see if we can figure out something for those particular individuals.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. Well, Harriet, I know this has been kind of a quick interview, but I got to run. Thank you very much for taking the time to visit with me, and just keep me posted on whatever's going on.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Ken.
Have a good afternoon, Harriet.